Glad to have you join us here on Money Matters. I am Folashade Obrinde. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, says it is currently considering equity participation in 6 private refineries in the country. The NNPC said the decision was in line with the federal government's policy, which stipulates the mandatory participation at the corporation in any privately owned refinery that exceeds 50,000 barrels per day capacity. One of such privately owned refinery is the Dangote refinery, which according to the NNPC will cost $3 billion to acquire a 20% equity share. And this, of course, has been greeted with mixed reactions, as some industry experts believe the NNPC proposal is counterproductive to federal government's goal of economic revival amid high inflation, dwindling revenue, and the global pandemic. To make sense of this issue, I'm joined by oil and gas expert Charles Majomi and economic analyst Paul Alaje. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the program. Well, let's jump right into this conversation. Mr. Alaje, I would like to get your reaction to this. Does it make any economic sense for the federal government to buy shares in refineries that are not even functioning at the moment, especially when the country is deep in debts?
Well, quite a number of consideration. When you look at Nigeria authorities saying they want to buy shares in Dangote refinery, perhaps maybe Dangote have done some financial analysis to say if you buy the shares now, the value may be higher than what it is today. So instead of government just being a regulator, government is now going to have shares in the same refinery. It could also mean that Dangote refinery is looking for money to complete the project, which it promised Nigeria that was going to be ready by 2019. 2020 pandemic, now this is 2021. The refinery is yet to take shape. Well, there are a number of options for Nigerian government, particularly NNPC, is perhaps to support the refinery the agency of government had, talking about the functional 4 moribund refinery that have refused to work. And when you look at what Accountant General, the Auditor General of the Federation reported, these refineries, some of them generated nothing but billions of naira were spent to turn around the refinery that has refused to change the spot. So investing in Dangote refinery is coming with a mixed feeling. One, government may say if we invest in it, we are also going to have 20% profit or 30% shares when the refinery eventually goes up. It is not unusual though for a refinery that is not fully operational for people to invest in it. There is nothing wrong with that in that. But what is a huge concern is all that benefit environment that government has provided for Mr. Dangote, which even worth more than $3 billion. On what account are we going to record some of those benefits, for instance, access to FX, which of course is not easy thing to go by these days, and some other things that federal government has done for Mr. Dangote. 2, my major fear is the issue of monopoly. Monopoly can fix price. So if government that are supposed to even regulate the environment to allow for more people to operate within the system, perhaps we have a duopoly or we have an oligopoly, is supporting a monopolistic market. The fear is not now. When it manifests, Nigeria may even be buying more in terms of PMS than what we are buying this moment today.
Yeah, certainly, Mr. Alaje, but I'd like to get your thoughts on this, Mr. Majomi. Now, how do you react to analysis that refineries are not even as profitable as they used to be, owing to new regulations and global focus on clean energy?
Okay. My reaction to your question is that you're absolutely right. We are moving away from fossil fuels to renewable energies. This is a global trend. And we will be able to see that there will be a commensurate decline in the amounts of investment that will be made available to refinery projects, refining projects, as well as to upstream development projects, not only in Nigeria, but all over the world. I wanted to speak to a couple of things that were spoken about earlier with the other guests.
We're really very sorry, Mr. Majami, but we seem to be having a connection issue with your network, and we might need to continue with Mr. Alaje. Now, how do you react to the analysis that refineries are not even as profitable as they used to be, owing to new regulations and global focus on clean energy?
Well, the risk of investing in refinery is getting higher by the day. And even Nigerian government has announced that more Nigerians should convert their vehicle from using fossil fuel based to clean energy. And government said that they will ensure that there are several centers where this could be done in Nigeria. So which means why the demand for petroleum may reduce, that of gas may still be with us for a while. But more importantly, you see around the world that even the use of electric cars, mass production have started to take effect in different parts of the world. So investing in such enterprise may be for some regions that are not yet developed. And you know, with the world we live in, a world without wars, more and more people are getting to know that technology can solve problems of environment for them. If you look at Nigeria today, this is June, it will be very difficult to you to count the amount of rains on two palms of your hand. This is very unusual. This is huge concern. People have said the emission from Africa is not much. The question is, why are we having extremely low rainfalls right now, this moment today? And we want to now embark on new refineries. I am not particularly against that, but I am saying that the demand side might not be as much as we envisage. So if government says it wants to invest, we need to do a proper investment analysis before we commit a whopping 15 billion naira into such enterprise. I mean, did I say 15 billion? Say 1.5 trillion naira, beg your pardon, into such.
Now, according to the NNPC, the corporation is mandated by policy to participate in private refineries that exceeds 50,000 barrels per day capacity, primarily to safeguard national energy security. Now, is this a policy that must be enforced irrespective of the nation's economic realities?
Well, policy is different from the act of the parliament. I'm yet to see it in the act, and I'm very sure that this is not constitutional. So if it's the act of the parliament, I'm here to see it. If it's a judicial precedent, I'm here to also read such as part of the previous judgment that have come from any court of competent jurisdiction. If it's an internal decision or workings or a circular of government, or if it's an executive order, all of those can always be reviewed. So if government is saying that it is mandatory as a result of policy, we need to see where that has been gazetted and which law he has taken his life from. But more importantly, Nigeria needs resources more than ever before now, with 32.9 trillion naira debt already standing, and also looking at additional 1.5, approximately 1.5, 1.3 trillion into refineries that is owned by private sector. How do we determine control? Because 20% of shares is a lot. But how do we determine the proportion Nigeria has? Who determines the revenue? Who are those going to be on board? You see, government has no business doing business. The role of government is regulation. And I think Nigerian government should stay with what works, which is regulation. 4 refineries have been directly managed by NNPC. And I can ask you, have we been able to get up to 100,000 barrels in the last 5 years from these refineries? Your guess and your answer, they are good as mine, because the answer is no.
Now speaking of policy, you said government has no business in doing business, but rather should regulate. And this is something that has been said for a very long time in Nigeria. This is something economic experts have said the government should do, but it seems that is not the case. Now, taking a look at the reality of Nigeria, are you saying that this is the only way forward for the Nigerian government, because over and over we see governments meddling into, I wouldn't say meddling, but participating in different aspects of the economy. And as we know, the reality is that this doesn't work. What do you think will change this?
Well, it is sign of insanity for somebody to keep doing the same thing and expecting the same thing over and over, getting certain results, and expecting that the more he does it, he's going to get positive results. It's likened to a man in the Federal Capital Territory who plans to go to Sokoto but faces Lokoja, and after that extend his journey to Ibadan. And now from Ibadan, he could see welcome to Lagos, and he's hoping that someday he will get to Sokoto, which is that in opposite direction. I have said it time and again, the process of appointment of government agencies and also politicians are not so very different in modern days. Through political recognition, political connections, political appointment, etc., etc. It is different from competence and ability to deliver on the job. Because we don't have the ability to deliver on the job, my concern is, which is also a fair organization, even though you include private sector, how do you even know what is rightfully your own? Because this organization is supposed to pay taxes to government, and we have seen government being involved in most parts of the economy. If we want our economy to be market driven, it is better we leave it like that. If we want it to be a planned economy, socialist based economy, then we leave it like that and know we are working a socialist system. But the confusion of this moment, we say we are going towards market, the other moment we are showing the exact direct opposite sign of the same. If it is the fact that we want to support the Dangote refinery to get revenue, and that fund is coming at certain interest rates, then it's fine. But if it is equity, the question is, how do we manage it? An organization that has not been able to manage refineries of its own, 4 refineries of its own over the years, what is the confidence that we have that it has capacity to go into this investment? And when we give this money, are we even sure that government will not come tomorrow to say he wants to sell his assets in order to raise revenue? And we are also familiar with several policy somersaults from administration to administration. You realize that before, even the 4 refineries have been given to private sector, another government came and said, no, he wants to review that decision. And that is where we have found ourselves today. For us, we believe that it is important for government authorities to stay with the core mandate of regulation and perhaps revenue generation in some instances, so that private sector can drive this system. I think what should be on the mind of the agency of government, in this case, the National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, should be, how do we ensure that when Dangote refinery is taking off, there are at least 4 to 5 competitors, so that we can always checkmate price via this competition. I also think by now government should consider even giving out the 4 refineries to other private sector individuals, so that we can now have a price competition within the sector, rather than single individual just dominating the sector, while we have concern about who we compete. Recall what happened to sugar, where you have Dangote sugar, Bua sugar, and also I think Golden flour, flour mills. And you've seen the war that happened just last month or few periods ago. This similar issue have happened in cement, and we are extending it to refinery. While I understand 1 or 2 persons might have also gotten license, the kind of support we are giving to Dangote refinery, can we extend it and see how we can have speedy conclusion upon of this refinery among other ones, so that Nigeria, who may not be in the middle, to suffer increase in prices over time.
Now, Mr. Alaje, you made a very valid point with regards to the 4 refineries owned by the Nigerian government. We'll definitely talk about this at the other part of the program, but let's take a break here. And when we return, the conversation continues. Money Matters continues shortly. Please stay with us.
Corruption not in my country.
Hello, Alahaji. Right now I'm in Abuja. No. Hello? Adamu. Right now I'm in Kano. Yes. When I get back, I'll just call you. Look, what is wrong with you? I'm talking on the phone and you are gesticulating and doing. What's wrong with you?
Daddy, where exactly are we as we speak?
Are you alright? This is Lagos.
Well, you just lied to someone that we are in Abuja.
Keep quiet. Who told you you can tell an elderly person is lying?
Daddy, you just lied. And by lying, you're raising corrupt children for the future of Nigeria. That is corruption, not in my country.
Corruption not in my country.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you've been watching Money Matters, and I've been speaking with Paul Alaje on the economic and sector implications of federal government's participation in refineries, in private refineries. Now, Mr. Alaje, thank you so much for staying. Now, for years now, there have been questions as to why Nigeria's refineries have refused to be productive despite the monies invested. What do you think are the challenges, and are you in support of the rehabilitation of the Nigerian refineries?
Refineries, 3 in the South and 1 in Kaduna, you realize that it is driven by civil servants, and the motivation for refineries, it should be profits, not maintenance. And each time you see turnaround maintenance being carried out, some people's palms might have been greased based on the information that is in public domain and the expectation, or maybe I shouldn't say expectation, the perception of many Nigerians. But if you give these refineries to private sector, who is more interested in making profit? You understand that efficiency, profit, the desire for profit will drive efficiency. What Nigerians are not having this moment today is efficiency. So if we want the refineries to work, why has the refineries not worked? One, because of policy. In fact, I've seen National Assembly at the time, particularly the Senate, reversing and standing by non-privatization of refinery. I was invited at the time by some members of the senators to give a perspective to, that was the 8th National Assembly, to give a perspective regarding the 4 refineries and why I think they have not been working. I was very open to these senators to say, well, you are part of the problem because you do not know about the business of refinery. You want to hold the image that Nigeria owns something, and to you, you believe that is a national asset. Meanwhile, this national asset is not giving you revenue. You are even spending on it. And this is a big reality of somebody who has 1984 Pojo car and see somebody who wants to work on the Pojo car, make it function, and maybe use it for a taxi and even remit to you and make revenue. But they said, no, it's a Pojo car. Let me leave it in front of my house and people know that I was once rich. That is the situation of Nigeria. We cannot maintain these refineries because the bottleneck within the civil service will not make it work. We need to give it to private sector individuals whose interest is to make profit, who will invest their own money, not partnership of any form. It's not partnership because when you look at any economy without energy, energy can be classified into 2, energy in power and energy in fuel. So if there is no power and fuel, such economy is grounded and knowledge cannot be produced. You may want to look at several indices indices that have been released on Nigeria. Is it human capital development? Nigeria rated very poorly, about 117 out of 152 countries. Or you want to look at human development index, where Nigeria rated over 150 out of about 160 or 180 as the case may be. Or you want to look at ease of doing business, where power represented energy, where Nigeria was rated over 130 out of less than 280 countries or 181 countries. You see, so this is happening because we want to hold firm to assets that are not productive, and we call them stock assets. They are not productive. They are not giving us any value. So what is the point having old Pojo in your garage that is not doing anything just for you to look at it? You are even spending to wash, you are spending to service, but you never use. So for us, we believe that government needs to give out these refineries, price it, look for auctioneers to auction it to those who can make them work. Then we can start reduce pressure on FX. Now look at this. We hear that Nigerian foreign reserve has continued to reduce because of demand. What are we demanding for? You may want to look at National Bureau of Statistics figures in fourth quarter 2020, which is still the most recent report released by the organization. What we exported the most was fossil fuel and gas out of Nigeria. But what we imported the most was PMS into Nigeria. So how can a country who depend largely on oil still be importing oil? Now what you have done is, as the way you earn your USD is the same way you are spending it. It's not doing so much, it's not getting to other sectors, it's not lubricating the economy. That is why if anything happens to global oil price, it has tremendous impact on Nigerian economy and Nigerian market entirely, because as we earn, we are giving back. Now that we have to pay more, the government has started talking about subsidy. But imagine if we have our own local refinery and we have our oil, and there seems to be some conspiracy, even beyond Nigeria, for some refineries not to work in Nigeria, because in the 80s, 70s and 80s, when refineries are working at optimum level, Nigeria do not have to queue, but queue started late 80s to 90s.
Now, Mr. Laje, you made a very valid point. You said in the 60s and 70s, these refineries worked. What went wrong? Because that seems to be the recurring question. It just seems like almost nothing is working in Nigeria. But beyond that, the federal government said that the primary reason for wanting to own stocks in these private refineries is for national security in terms of energy. And I want you to do a two-in-one analysis of these issues. Firstly, what do you think went wrong? Like you said, in the 60s and 70s, these refineries worked fine. And now the federal government is saying they want to rehabilitate the 4 refineries owned by Nigeria. And these 6 private refineries are coming in now. They want to own stocks in them. And most experts have said that this is a wrong move at this point in time, because it will cost federal governments more. What exactly do you think the federal government can do at this point in time?
Well, there is nothing secure about 20% of shares. When you say you want to own 20% of shares because you want to be secure, that argument is not tenable anywhere. Nigeria has 0% of fuel, and we still buy fuel into Nigeria today. I don't think that argument is strong enough. I think, because you will see here, but don't let us say some things on national television. So let's leave those arguments for another day. So the important thing is, when we say that we want to buy up to 20% of shares because of national security, the question is, why can't you secure the one that you have 100% shares in? You have 4 refineries. It is not 1%. It is not 99%. You have 100% shares. NNPC knows that what is missing is efficiency. So if you know that this organization can become efficient, then there is no point for you to carry load on them. Let the organization be efficient, create more. This is economics. Create more opportunities such as the organization have, so you can now allow competition to take place, then the people benefit. That is what makes sense. So for the 4 refineries that we have, they were working because grid was not as much as we have them today. They were working because they were relatively new. They were working because we have not had this system of government that we have 2 upper chamber and lower chamber, and we have everybody. What is ubiquitous is, how can I get part of the national cake? What I think we should do is, we are not baking any cake any longer. I don't know if you are aware, based on circular that was found in public domain, how NNPC has said it may not contribute to FAC account because of subsidy. So those are the realities that should bother the National Petroleum Corporation as to how do we operate this organization as business. And when I say as business, does not mean that you are looking at someone else's shares. No, as regulators who wants to play the regulatory role, because you cannot be the regulator at the same time be the regulated. There is always confusion. Now, if there are other organizations where NNPC does not have shares, so and they are now competing with Dangote and NNPC, does it make sense? It does not make sense anywhere. So allow private sector so that there will be no complaint of bias. Why, as NNPC or Nigerian government, not participate in cement industry? Why can't Nigerian government buy cement? That means you have to buy with everybody. So because we call it national security. Why are we not buying in sugar? Why have we allowed sugar, even though it's still imported till today? 1.5 metric ton sugar is what Nigeria consumes, with no single purchase from any of these 3 refineries in Nigeria. Why are we doing it with oil? Come up with policies such as sugar development, sugar sufficiency policy that we have through National Sugar Development Council. So if you come up with policy as to how people can invest and the support program you have given, this is what makes sense. I wonder why we need to show energy to marshal arguments that are very simple in Nigeria. It is because of greed of men. When we become less greedy and we focus on what is objective and productive, we will see the kind of results that we want to see.
Now, finally, let's touch on this. Renewable and clean energy has been on the front burner of many global energy discourse. How well do you think Nigeria is performing in preparing to switch to clean energy?
Well, if you ask me, I've seen individual efforts. I've also seen supports, say pocket of support here and there. I've started seeing homes, pocket of homes with solar panel and so on and so forth. Deep down, many authorities still believe that it will take a long time before we can see clean energy. Recall that one of the senators in the last dispensation has also brought a bill for what's it called, electric cars in Nigeria, which could have been a major turnaround. And when government is talking about what do we call it now, fuel subsidy or removal, some Nigerians will have option either to buy electric cars or not. But policy is a bottleneck for Nigeria. And also, and if you look at the way this argument about greener and better energy and environment is going, the concern will be that Nigeria may even be sanctioned by organizations and countries that may be following these principles. So is Nigeria doing enough? We are not yet doing up to average. And I think that there will be conscious efforts. And this will reflect even in importation tariffs that we'll be charging, particularly for equipment that are compliant to a better environment. But if we are not doing this, I have a lot of concern that we still want to be doing business as usual.
Well, you've made very valid points, Mr. Alaje. Well, thank you very much for this conversation. Thank you very much for coming on Money Matters.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Well, it's a wrap on the program. Thank you for watching. I am Folashade Ogurinde. Bye for now.